In a landmark 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court has sharply limited the president's power to impose tariffs under the guise of national security, demanding explicit and timely congressional approval. This ruling marks a fundamental shift in the balance of power between the executive and legislative branches on trade. For years, Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962 allowed presidents to levy tariffs, most notably under the Trump administration, which imposed steep duties on steel, aluminum, and other goods. Critics argued these tariffs were more about economic protectionism than true national security. The court's decision now forces a national conversation about what constitutes a real security threat in today's global economy. Many tariffs remain, affecting supply chains and raising consumer prices. The ruling doesn't erase the past but sets a clear boundary for future actions. Congress is now empowered to reclaim its constitutional authority over trade, while the world sees the U.S. pivoting toward a more predictable, rules-based approach. The legal and economic adjustments ahead will be complex, and the political fallout is just beginning. This decision reshapes the tools available to any president in foreign economic policy. It's a moment of constitutional clarity with profound real-world consequences. The era of unfettered presidential tariff power is over. Businesses and consumers alike will feel the effects as the U.S. redefines its approach to global trade. The decision signals a new chapter, one that demands collaboration and oversight. The world is watching how America adapts to this rebalancing of power. The future of U.S. trade policy will be written not by one leader, but by a more accountable, deliberative process. The Supreme Court has set the stage for a new era in American economic governance. Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962 was designed to let presidents restrict imports that threaten national security, originally to protect industries vital to defense. For decades, it was rarely used until the Trump administration invoked it in 2018 to justify sweeping tariffs on steel and aluminum, even from close allies. The definition of national security was stretched to cover general economic concerns, sparking legal and political backlash. Lawsuits from U.S. industries and complaints from foreign governments followed, challenging the president's broad authority. The core question: can a president unilaterally declare a trade imbalance with a friendly nation a national security threat, bypassing Congress? Lower courts often deferred to the executive, making it hard to challenge these actions. The Supreme Court's willingness to hear the case signaled a readiness to clarify this constitutional gray area. The result: a historic ruling that redefines the limits of presidential power over trade. Section 232 is no longer a blank check for unilateral action. The law now demands real oversight and a tighter link to genuine security threats. The Supreme Court's majority opinion reinterpreted Section 232, imposing strict limits on its use. The president must now provide a direct, reviewable link to a specific national security threat before imposing tariffs, and Congress must have the chance to approve or reject the action. This restores a key congressional role in trade policy. The dissent warned this could slow responses to real threats, but the majority insisted that economic protectionism cannot be disguised as national security. The decision recalibrates the balance of power, pulling authority back from the White House. The president is not the economist-in-chief. The power to regulate commerce remains with Congress. This ruling stands alongside other historic cases defining the limits of presidential power. The court has drawn a clear line: trade policy must respect constitutional checks and balances. Tariffs on steel and aluminum raised prices for cars, appliances, and everyday goods, costing the average American household over $1,200 a year. These costs hit lower and middle-income families hardest, acting as a hidden regressive tax. The Supreme Court's decision won't immediately lower prices, but it blocks new broad tariffs without congressional oversight. This creates a more stable, predictable environment for businesses and consumers. Over time, if Congress and the administration roll back existing tariffs, prices for cars, construction materials, and appliances could gradually fall. The ruling is not just a legal milestone, it's a pocketbook issue for millions of Americans. Stability in trade policy helps curb inflation and protects household budgets. The decision offers hope for relief from the hidden costs of trade wars. For consumers, this is a step toward a fairer, more transparent economic future. The Supreme Court's decision redraws the map for American industries. Winners include automakers, aerospace, construction, and food packaging, sectors that rely on steel and aluminum and have struggled with higher costs and lost competitiveness. These industries now have a stronger case for repealing tariffs and restoring fair competition. Domestic steel and aluminum producers who benefited from protection now face renewed global competition and uncertainty. The debate over industrial protectionism shifts from the White House to Congress, demanding public justification for any future trade barriers. The ruling doesn't end the debate, but it forces a more transparent, accountable process. The long-term health of protected industries is now in question. Congress must weigh the true costs and benefits of shielding industries from global markets. The future of U.S. manufacturing will be shaped by open debate, not executive fiat. For China, the Supreme Court's decision is a strategic shift. While the steel and aluminum tariffs hit others harder, Beijing saw Section 232 as a symbol of U.S. unpredictability. The ruling limits the president's ability to impose sudden, sweeping trade restrictions, making future actions more transparent and requiring congressional input. This reduces the threat of unilateral escalation and strengthens China's argument for a rules-based global order. However, the U.S.-China rivalry remains. Other legal tools for confronting China are still in place. The decision removes one of the most unpredictable weapons from the U.S. trade arsenal. For China, it's a sign that the U.S. is returning to more predictable, institutional processes. The world's most important economic relationship just became a bit more stable, but the underlying competition is far from over. The European Union welcomed the Supreme Court's decision as a step toward restoring trust and predictability in transatlantic trade. The 2018 tariffs shocked US-EU relations, triggering retaliatory measures and complicating supply chains. The ruling vindicates the EU's position that the tariffs violated international law and strengthens its push for their full removal. European businesses, especially automakers, now face less risk of sudden US tariffs, enabling better long-term planning. The decision paves the way for deeper cooperation on global issues like AI, China policy, and climate change. By reining in unilateral executive power, the court has done more to repair the alliance than years of negotiations. The EU sees this as proof that US institutions can self-correct and uphold the rule of law. The transatlantic economic relationship is stabilizing, supporting millions of jobs. Allies are reassured that US policy is no longer at the whim of a single administration. The stage is set for renewed partnership and shared leadership. The immediate aftermath will see legal and political battles over existing tariffs, with Congress and the administration under pressure to act. Industries hit by tariffs will lobby for relief, armed with the Supreme Court's decision. Future presidents will need congressional support to use trade as a national security tool, shifting power from the White House to Capitol Hill. This slows impulsive actions, but may also lead to gridlock if Congress can't agree. Internationally, the ruling helps restore U.S. credibility and trust among allies, signaling a renewed commitment to the rule of law. The decision could strengthen the multilateral trading system the U.S. helped build, but new questions arise. Can a divided Congress act decisively on trade? The risks of inaction and partisanship are real. The long-term success of this new framework depends on Congress's ability to forge coherent, strategic trade policy. America's global leadership now hinges on its institutions' capacity to adapt and cooperate. The Supreme Court's November 2025 decision is a turning point in American economic history. By curbing presidential tariff authority, the court has reasserted constitutional checks and balances and reshaped U.S. and global trade. Consumers and industries may see relief from inflation and supply chain disruptions, while protected sectors face new challenges. Allies welcome the move. Rivals note the loss of a powerful U.S. tool. The era of unilateral trade action is over. Congress must now lead. The immediate task is dismantling the old tariff regime. The long-term challenge is crafting effective, fair trade policy. The responsibility now falls on Congress and the White House to work within these new constraints. The open question: can a divided Congress wield its restored power wisely for America's future?